Up in 86. We were wiping up in 86. There's a lot of cutlery around here, I said. Enough to feed a small army. I wondered if he too had been to war. He was an a-hole and Benny's first victim. He claimed to hate it. But you could tell that he loved that job as much as all the other 51 card limeys who sounded good enough on the phone to be hired without a reference. We loved that job because in all anywhere you wouldn't find a better boss. Some of the night shift workers had misgivings. Instead of clocking on, they had to catch 3 moths. He was a looper, first degree. He had an enormous trophy in the middle of his desk, so big you had to crane your neck to see round the damn thing if you got the chair opposite him at the weekly meeting. This trophy was engraved, "To Gelhonius Castrigigo, first place, round the world baked bean lick, 1953. Gelhonius was head of the business. That was a factory, and yet a radio station. He had a controlling interest in a nationwide newspaper, the National Collection, which was published in the factory. Patrick, that's my partner, and me were journalist labourers. We lugged rolls of newsprint off the truck and typed stories to cover it. Usually on our lunch break, we'd stick around and jam with Gelhonius, who played a mean harp, or watch him paint and sketch between ice cream cones. Instead, today, we took the E-van over to Patrick's shack on Bailey Bridge. Occasionally, he'd get to talking, reminiscing about indirectly government-owned newspapers. They were the first to keep other thoughts from the other 90%. He was, of course, talking about the whole and nothing but truth, whose famous slogan was, "Believe everything you read." I lost the station and tuned back in at, "It is only many rumours, the sort of thing we ignore every day." Up, he flapped outside and followed a straight line extended from his index finger to the Tasman Bridge 1,500 yards distant. It appeared to be crumbling just off centre, a whopping gap and nothing that could cause such devastation to see. "Well, Patrick, we've got tomorrow's front pager. Last time the bridge broke, it sold papers worldwide." How could he refuse? Back to the factory. Gelhonius, boss editor, will run the story. Caught him in the middle of weekly meeting. He thought as a front page it might be disturbing. Doing this involves my own time and treatment. A newspaper like this should be a special place that you have always liked or thought peaceful. The old get angry. We grabbed our cameras and there were people called. Returning to the hut, both leaning on the rail inspecting the damage with hand telescopes, when we felt a cool blue wash. About 5 seconds passed in none, and a yellow thing with eyes. It was about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. Hovering under the water, with a foot clearance from the surface. Tension was absent, as if watching ridiculous google-eyed yellow things approaching underwater, perusing us and passing on upriver was an every lunch hour event. Silence between us. What could you say? There was the feeling of being in cartoon, as this and others, alike only in their progress from the deep, scooted past in formation. The bridge had gone. The bus was leaving. We hurled our photos and the bridge break article in a biscuit tin. Note attached through the driver's window. Patrick had it all figured. If they are all heading upriver, there could be but one destination, the barn. The E-van could manage 160, but would they run the second story? The special visitor. Advertised the vacant room. One of the applicants swore as much as me and was in. At the first sign of heat, he vanished and was never heard of again until story 5. He'd agreed to sing for the band and was gone. Worry about that tomorrow. I wanted to get some sleep, but the guitar had other ideas. Michelle walked all the foreseeable future. Long past time for breakfast. I was still considering the dream she bounced on me, so I called her. How many paths of torment since one of her recent ancestors performed a dark test, infamous for accuracy. I remember her voicing, "Tears walk my pillow," for she believed the prediction would be true for her. But the sickness never came. She answered the phone I had to offer. "A penny for your thoughts, my dear, though they be worth much more, I hear." She came back with, "I think I got out of the wrong side at breakfast this morning." I went around to continue the discussion. "There was this guy. Treated her rough," she said. "Must get sleep. Got an exam tomorrow." She spoke for an hour on physics, but said a lot more with her thighs. Well, see my consciousness. I've walked in the other upstairs room, and there's our new flatmate, a pen raised to his mouth, cigar fashion, pleading, "Anybody got a light? I'll just smoke me some ink and dream me up a novel." Something within made me urge him. "Every actor treads in your temple. I wish you could see mine." First money I made was from selling my record player. Michelle picks me up. We walk. We talk. She drives. Tonight, we are using our spare drummer, just in case. If an audience-eating monster had crashed through the wall, it would have been chewing on a dozen different lifestyles. Things were heating up by the second bracket. Momentarily spastic in the spring-based war, someone yelled, "Play something precarious." So it was Griffin's Touch and Go. Ran to keep my appointment with the manager of First Cut Records. He smiles a lot, would be tight-fisted and unprepared for the taking of financial risks. He frowns a lot when I fall off my chair, clutching my left tit and breathing hoarsely. Don't think he wants a corpse on his carpet. Feed him story. I've been given 2 months, from 2 months ago, to live. Also, that I have a contract in my pocket which gives the signer complete control of tapes containing 4 albums worth of music I have in my briefcase. He realizes this could mean money. He knows dying is a great publicity getter and signs. To his shock, I get up, clutching the contract that is actually a signed undertaking, all legal-like, for 1,000 hours recording time, studio time, with no ownership on the tapes. I say, is that today's paper? I've seen you in a later edition. And laughing, leave. So, I lied a few truths. There's always lies. It's pathetic, really, if you open your eyes. Returning to Michelle's place, she asks, "How did you go with your special interview with that important fellow?" "Great. I made a big impression on him." "Really? What did you do?" I threw an elephant at him. "Michelle, anyone ever tell you your eyes are a holiday?" At the bar, I'd had a dream. There was a small town hall I entered. A voice whispered. Michelle was there. She runs away. She stops. She smiles, having found a cheap equilibrium. "Remain scared," yelled from the speakers. Wakes me. The drink's there, but he must have misheard me. "Hey, I'd like to learn this without the ice, please." Back at 37, his room is full. Sitting down, I took one pentatonic hit and left the room. A bus ticket fell out of my mouth. Under Mexico. "I have a gun pointed at you. Get some bread out." Looks like a crew of unsavory locals harassing citizens. The shoppers screamed insults belonged to no one. The meat moved on. I tracked them to a nearby chemist. They didn't notice me following them around the store. 2 of them went into the back storage room, the owner protesting. The other 2 back standing out front. A delivery van pulls up and crates are loaded into the storage room. An extremely large crate bearing huge stickers "Super 10-Speed Maxi Dilled" was unloaded into a flurry of fists and gun butts. These villains had captured an entire crate of vibrating sex toys. I grabbed my walkie-talkie and radioed bass. Bunch of evil meat in big dildo ripoff. Will pursue. I wore no shoes in the chase. They were fast until the alley. One opened the manhole and they were down real fast. I jumped down after them, misjudging the distance. My feet hurt. They heard me. Hey, slow down. Pain now offered a road out of that city. Two of them doubled back to help. I hadn't noticed a woman amongst them, but the left one was. These were no thugs. Odd, there was no suspicion. She speaks words of friendship and an offer that few of the troposphere luck to hear. You look the type of learning. Come with us. We've got a cask of wine inside the Mother Earth. Secret tunnels further than we've seen, ending in deep sandgrass. Night now, and the moon reveals a hovercraft slowly moving away from the shore. We are late. Wade, we swim, choking in by running after it. I met their friends, and it was all stepping delicately between the waves. The crew fed us, and above the hum I was educated on the nature, history, and apolitics of our destination. The cause had many factions. All I met here were of the outer cause, engines off. Representatives from the Watcher took me to their cavern, dripping in the ocean. Velvet branches crackle out to meet me from the Watcher on the cast iron balcony, down in the ocean where the antelopes are, and red things jumping up and down. Candlelight invited me and my luminous pupil, shadowy heads and smoke. The sand butchers took me down the stone pad and turned me on. Further into the cave we round a corner for my first shock. The ceiling here was almost 200 feet up, and there was a town stretching out of sight, and all this hundreds of meters below sea level. These are your compatriots. We made the sign. I was given cassettes to absorb, and after 5 hours I knew more. I heard there was a fugitive somewhere abouts. It could have been any one of them. Apparently this guy had an obsession to push something. Voice of the woman who brought me here explained their ritual of cleansing. All disrobe and enter a large communal shower, washing meticulously, and dry themselves by rolling on the carpet in the rub room. Then enter the satin chamber. Her name was Patricia Black Undergarments, and there was space for me in her apartment 7 from the second floor lifts. Leaving the elevator, I considered how well organized was this haven of harmless debauchery. I signaled my arrival, and she was there beckoning me inside. Leaving the room, she told me to whip some cream. I was immediately suspicious. Above the bed hung 2 paintings titled Long Forgotten Dawn of the Change Rooms and The Intangible Yellow Fuckstick. On the bed, a diamond invitation she proffered. Could I coincide with your insanity to lure your sweet lovin'? I'm 804,000 years old, and so you should be. Let's get laid. Probably 3:45 I woke, a.m. Without stars, it was very dark. There was an ominous deep grinding sound from nearby. There was the sound of plaster under pressure, being pushed, and an oath under it, perfectly synchronized, a thump, and an occasional quiet animal squeal or groan. Shaking, I arose and along the passage to number 8. I had always in my mind believed that under oceans in deeps uncombed were creatures monstrous, enormous living blobs in thick membrane, small, intelligent sea hogs. And what's to stop these getting loose in their town? I knocked. The thumping continued. Steeling myself, I entered. A couple were leaning against the thin wall. I heard noises. Was that you banging on the wall? Yes, this is how we do it Tuesdays. In Patricia's room, all was nice. I overheard her muttering, "Will it be tonight?" Pondering on to what this referred, I thought, no, the tapes told me these subaqueous women were, You know, as regular as the post office in the year one. She got weird about this time every month, so the mailman explained, shuffling through his bag at the door. There was something, and finally it had arrived. Her excitement was obvious. Where was old Gelhonius to record the expressions I saw on her face while she was flipping through actual pictures of the new genitalia, a monthly gazette produced by genetic engineers of the intercores? Supper. There were some interesting things on that table. A casserole dish with mashed potato base and two Brussels sprouts leaning against each other, leaning against each of 6 vertical carrots, skillfully sculpted was one, plus other objects I had not quite expected to see on a meal table. He at the table's head described a deep-sea delicacy that can only be got when it jumps into the small pools at the opening to the cave. You could never catch them in the slime. There were some runny dishes, but I wanted one a bit more solid. Patricia passed me the shoe. As soon as I tasted it, I could tell it was laced. Entertainment had been arranged. Patricia was up swinging, swaying, twisting and a-chugling and yelling over the band, wants me to join her. Dance, clean the shit out of your awakening. Later that same evening, I found my way back to room 7. There were Patricia and Faye. Pants were undone. I came and saw and looked, turned my face away to sleep. At dawn, we found a message advising us that our land contact would be a transvestite holding open a pair of red rose binoculars. There were suggestions and directions. She said, there's not much you can take, like you're only a personal flotation device. We'd creep along, stand still, and for the following week I packed. We bow ourselves to travel the tunnel, and just as we reached the light of day, the king of Rainy Land up and decided to hit the means of escape. We had taken the back way out of under Mexico and are getting our faces tanned in Brazil, a fancy dress crowd, streets alive with party, controlled by brightly feathered policemen. Patricia took me to an abandoned building. Opening the door, she gave me a gun and ushered me into a wardrobe at the end of the corridor. You will stay here for 5 days. Out the window, I could see 3 international newspaper headlines outside an English-serving news agency. The Purple Herald. Governor off his face. The Green Times. Sphinx shoots load. The Loop. Chief push suspect disappears off face of the earth. Benny named in big wig out. Before goodbye and leaving, she gave me a shiny silver coin and one order. Keep it clean. With, please. Next door is as close as eyes usually came. Nobody knew too much about them. They were so private, no one knew them. So with, please. Next door is as close as eyes usually came. Nobody knew too much about them. They were so private, no one knew that they'd had a son until 2 years later. So private, even us close relations usually had to stay next door to Cousin Benny's. There was talk he was not like other children, that when 2 months old he was discovered performing an elaborate knife and fork ritual of unknown age. On a visit one afternoon, while we resurrect my Levi's, I heard his mother yelling, "Who put the milk in the biggie tin? Who put the shark in the stew?" Under the table there he was, pissing in his father's sandwiches. His mother had goldfish 23 years ago. She still turned their air on every morning, creating a horrid racket. All his biker father had left was one gold tooth. It was he, yes, who woke alone and saw the shadow. Weeping eyes in beds of stone. I'd always said one of these days I'm going dream room. So I got myself a room in the city. place to hide my exile. Tired of walking the neon dog, home lying in bed late one night watching the final program, I was slow to notice that the special police message was not part of the movie. If you happen to live near this man, move very quietly toward the front veranda and jump into the net you will see positioned below. It was him, and that's the same row of houses. Funny, because last time I'd seen him, all was together, as it had never quite been before. Between silence, sometimes you could detect a laugh, a rhythm, the ghost of his gifts. He and his friends were achieving humanity amidst concrete. Constant silent learnings. Then there was that business with her parents and her parents and her parents. There was rejection without apparent reason. This tore him and his league of close ones, throwing them off in different directions. University, mediocrity, alcoholism, and a near fatal hibernation. But a tree is leaving the forest, a master of timing on bloody ground.